learned how to work hard. Sound exciting to go, yeah, let's do business as mission. It's not necessarily easy. We think often in the West we come with the expertise. Sometimes we do, often we don't. If you're not an entrepreneur, attach yourself to an entrepreneur.
Merlin, so good to be with you here. So good. We actually got to know each other on such a meeting, right?
Yeah, I think 2 years ago.
2 years ago, that's the first time we met.
Yeah. These events tend to pull people from all over the globe together.
And that's true. And you're from Canada.
Yes.
You're engaged with church, with mission, but also with business. And we want to talk a little bit about that. But maybe first tell us a bit about your story. Where do you come from? How do you end up being in the vineyard and missions and stuff?
Yeah, I'll give you the short version. Grew up as a farm and a child on a farm. So I learned how to work hard and do kind of farm life. But I always thought I'd be in ministry, so I went the Bible college route. I never went the university route to find a degree in business of any kind. And so I was a pastor for 13 years. Yeah. And as our journey led towards wanting to plant a new expression of a church that had a lot to do with the young adults and some of the youth that we built.
In what year was that?
And that would have been in 2001.
All right.
So in 2001, we gave up our salary as pastors, not knowing what we would do. Yeah. But knew that was the Lord's calling, and knew that we were going to do something with some very close friends who were actually also pastors in different churches. So the Lord was stirring a number of us at the same time. And at that point, we only knew remotely had some friends in the vineyard. And so we at different times left our churches. But in order to make ends meet, I had 3 little kids. I just went back to one of the trades I had picked up years ago.
Because you grew up on a farm.
I grew up on a farm, so you learn different trades. And so I ended up just buying some tools and a truck, and it was just myself in 2001, and I started Epic Roofing. And so in Canada we have a lot of shingled roofs, and so not maybe the same slate or metal roofs that you have in Europe, but some of those as well. But it's the cheaper version, faster, easier to put on. And so I just began to hire some of the youth from our church and some of my friends. So the earlier years of Epic Roofing, I literally employed some of the pastors that became church planters with me together and gave them employment as we dreamt and prayed what Epic the ministry would look like. So we planted Epic Roofing in 01, just myself. By 02, I had 3 or 4 employees, and then we planted Epic Ministries. My thought was, I call myself an accidental businessman, and that I never did any formal degree of any kind.
I love that.
If you want to talk about getting your MBA, my friends kind of joke and say, you got your MBA in your own business. Your Master of Business Administration inside of your own business.
And it's epic.
And it's epic, yes. For the first 4 or 5 years of the company, I was always wrestling, because really the company existed and it was useful to help us plant a church. Because nobody had money or any finances. We didn't belong to a body other than a Baptist church that said, use our building to do whatever you're doing.
All right.
And so that's how it began. And so we found our way into the vineyard because early on, a part of our church plant was wanting to find ways, more welcoming ways of including the work of the Holy Spirit. We came from very good evangelical Bible teaching churches, loved God, we loved the Word, we loved Jesus. We were a bit unsure, how does the Holy Spirit fit in? And so we naturally started asking our trusted friends who were in the vineyard to mentor us. And so even through the course of that, that's how I first got to know Todd Rakowski.
All right.
So back then, he was mentoring us into being a vineyard expression as a church, and now he works for me and my executive team inside of my company.
Oh, wow.
And so we have many, many years together. And so, so Epic Roofing had its own life. We did good work. We found a lot of favor in the construction sector. I started bringing other friends into the business, Christian leaders as well. And so it had a long journey of becoming what it is today. Our journey into the vineyard officially began in 05. So we had Epic Ministries, which was a coming together of a lot of young adults with a bit of a new expression of church, with a hunger for the work of the Spirit in the middle of it. And so 4 years of running that kind of in the YWAM Baptist camp, we found our way into the vineyard in '05. And we didn't have in Canada kind of a way of, we don't have a formal way of adopting you. We don't have a formal way of asking for permission, but because we've been together and doing relationship, let's just declare that you're vineyard.
Yeah.
And so we declared that we were vineyard in '05. And so now we've been a part of Epic Vineyard to date and a part of Epic group of companies. And so we're now 6 operating companies, all in the construction sector, led by 7 Christian businessmen, all from different denominations and walks of life. 3 of us are more connected to the vineyard.
Wow.
And that brings us to today. So I would say that I stumbled into business. First of all, it was just survival. I got to find a way to feed the kids. I have to find a way to make life work.
Stepping out of the role as a pastor, starting something new, And
it actually, I didn't know how entrepreneurial I was until I actually ended up finding my way into business. I think it actually, my senior pastor, I was a part of a very big church, 5,000-6,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And I think he always was kind of like
there's
I was
something
called
in
a
him.
maverick.
Oh, you will call
I
him
was
maverick.
called a maverick because I always seem to be looking at other ways of maybe doing things than the traditional way that our church was doing things. And so there was a dissonance in there that I wouldn't say I found expression for until I actually ended up in a very small manner building a business that has become a significant corporation. But it was a lovely way for me to find the entrepreneurship that was latent inside of me and finding a way for it to have expression because of the demand of it needing to happen in order for us to, we call it bootstrapping, if you know what that means, like taking money, like nobody gave us money to do our church plant. We had to come up with all the money ourselves. We came up with our money by working hard.
Wow. So I really understand the planting of this new church and the business that really was in the beginning really somehow inseparable. This was just one.
People at work would ask me, I'm not a Christian, so can I work here if I don't go to your church? And so if I would know today what would happen, if I had known then what I know today, I probably would not have named them the same.
Yeah.
But because the church was such an expression out of these friends together, working together, I had the ability to help them be employed. And so it had a very organic, natural way. But it gets kind of confusing now because there's an awful lot of other, banks and church and lawyers and accountants and everyone like, what's this Epic Vineyard thing? Seems to have the same name.
Are you producing wine?
Are you producing wine? Yeah. What is this all about? But it actually tells a good story.
Yeah.
Because all of our employees have to have the origin story as a part of their orientation.
Oh, wow.
And so then they gotta, that's why some of this culture is the way it is, because it actually came out of a church culture.
All right.
This business.
So now we've seen that planting the church and the business were very close.
Yes.
Now let's talk about missions. How did missions come into the picture?
So very early on, just with my involvement in the vineyard, I was invited to start traveling overseas and be participating with some of the vineyard work that was happening in different nations and different continents.
Yeah.
And so it didn't take long for us to begin to, with the business in Canada, begin to help fund and finance some of those things. So I would say we started as a business for mission, the church plant.
Yeah.
And they were kind of close together. As time went on, it became more of just a kingdom business. And now some of the things that I do overseas are maybe a little bit more connected to what we call business as mission. So I don't know that we would fit in Canada that pure category of business as mission, because the company's grown far beyond my missional heart.
All right.
And it employs a lot of people. So we've had to find new ways to describe why it exists. So it exists unto something. But I would say the business I started with my daughter recently, which is called Parish Coffee, is more a pure business as mission. It's intended to follow business principles and be self-sustaining, but its sole purpose is to employ women who have barriers to employment in the coffee industry.
All right, so that would be the logic of business as mission.
As mission, yeah, where it's super integrated.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was integrated just by accident because it happened to be me that was doing both. And I would say our business, the corporation, has become much bigger than a specific missional expression, but it funds many, many different missional expressions. So it would be a wealth creator that helps mission all across North America and the world happen.
Wow.
So
let me know some of your involvement overseas or in other contexts.
Right.
So it's one thing it's one thing, as you said, that a business can help to fund things.
Absolutely.
But it's a lot more than this.
A kingdom business exists to help fund mission and kingdom work.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses should do that. A lot of them don't. They kind of separate the two and go, I'll do my church life over here and I'll do my business life over here, and we'll try hard not to have, it's awkward if they meet too much. So I think we've tried to push against that. Overseas now, I'm involved with Vineyard Canada, of course, at a national level. We've been involved for years with the Himalayan region vineyards, and so have done many different joint ventures with them, and specifically involved with Ben and helping his church and himself find ways to foster businesses that can do both, help them become more self-sustaining, but also create incredible employment for other people from their church or from outside of the church within the community, and use that as a method of them as a doorway into their larger church community without maybe finding their way into the services, if you want to call it that, or to their gatherings, but to begin to adhere to this larger community that's called Siliguri Metanoia Vineyard in Siliguri. So we're involved there, we're involved in Thailand, and most recently also involved in another Middle East country where we're intentionally doing a lot of training. Because a lot of, one of the challenges can be, it can sound exciting to go, yeah, let's do business as mission. But I'll be the first to say it's not necessarily easy to do business. I think over the years, a lot of like government agencies or authorities in countries have become a bit cynical about these people coming in to do business, because it's really a bit of a false front to actually just come in as a church planter. So I don't want to sound, too harsh, but you kind of fake a business without really fully intending for this business to become self-sustaining and stand on its own 2 feet as a means of getting into harder to enter countries where you might not get, license to enter the country, or a visa as a church planter or as a social worker, as a Christian worker. But who doesn't want good business to happen in their country?
Absolutely.
So I think there's been lots of that's happened over the years, but right now there's and it has been for the last 10, 15 years, a significant move to planting legitimate self-sustaining businesses that if there was never a formed church that came out of it, they would still have a kingdom expression that's legitimate, and people are coming to know Jesus left, right, and center. Yeah. But both can very easily happen. So we're doing some stuff in the Middle East right now of finding out through a training process. A lot of people wave and go, I want to be an entrepreneur. Here's my idea, here's the money. Like, some of the things we need to understand in the pure business sense is if you actually have a business case to make in the West or in many countries, you don't necessarily get funding just as a startup. The whole concept is prove that you're willing to do some of that initial work as a startup, and then for scale up, we've got all kinds of capital available for you. So we're trying to train people who think maybe the Lord's calling me to some form of both and. It took me 9 years of actually wanting to exit the business world to get right back into full-time ministry before the Lord finally got through to me going like, no, I need you as a leader with equal feet in both camps. Wow. There's congruency to these.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
Maybe give me a specific example of like a business that you have started somewhere, let's say in Nepal. Just an idea so that people get sort of a concrete example.
Sure. So one of them is a failed business, but it led to some other things. Yeah. So the failed business was with our friend Ben, where we started Epic Taxis. Yeah. And so he was going to create employment with people that he knew, including he would do some driving himself. So we bought some vehicles and tried to create a taxi service. COVID came, obviously the tourism just absolutely killed everything. And he began to realize, man, that is taking so much of my time. And in his culture, he did need to have more time to be involved in his local church. So it wasn't congruent. Yeah. So we ended up selling his taxi. And so then we reinvested that money into a fish farm way up in the hills, where for just a few dollars, that community could buy a couple of big kind of chunks of land They dug ponds out of it. They rerouted the water that was naturally flowing down from the mountains.
Yeah.
And in India, if fish come from the rivers in the lowlands, they're pretty toxic. But if those fish are fed by fresh mountain water coming from up in the mountains,
it's a different story.
They're a very, very tasty fish. Yeah. And so that fish farm began to employ 2 or 3 families from one of our local vineyard churches up there. And it's a simple business. And they just, and we raise carp, and carp eat grass.
Yeah.
And so all they had to do is run around the mountainside and cut grass, throw it into the pond, and reroute the fresh water coming down from, and it really employed 5 or 6 villagers with this fish that they then took to market down in the lowlands, and it was fresh fish from up in the mountains.
That's so great. So let me know about how was the process of finding these projects. So you say that it's the locals that have ideas, you come in with knowledge. So how does this interplay, how does that look like?
This one was a very simple interplay because they all knew that in the markets down in the lowlands, these fresh fish would sell very, very easily.
Yeah.
Very, very tasty. So their concept was, we just need some capital to be able to buy a couple of chunks of land, dig some ponds in there, reroute the water, and so that it was very, very low capital.
And they knew how to do that.
And they actually already knew how to do that.
All right.
They just needed a bit of resource around it to actually make it happen. So that was a simple investment of funds that really did not require our expertise, because the expertise was there in country.
That's really
interesting. Which is super key.
Yeah.
We think often in the West we come with the expertise. Yeah. Sometimes we do, often we don't. You just have to empower the locals who have the knowledge.
So this leads me to another question. So what would you suggest to people that do this training, they want to get involved with mission, maybe they are already, and this question of helping people to come out of poverty, it's always a huge question, and then business comes to as an option. What is the advice you would give to such a person? And
I think if you can find the entrepreneurial spirit that's local. There's a lot of dreamers. There's some really hardworking entrepreneurs.
And how do you distinguish that?
Well, I think you look at their life, to date, what have they done? And have they done anything off the sweat of their own brow? Are they industrious? Often it's saying yes to the industrious person who started by doing little things. You know, I'll take this tin can and form it into something else that can be sold in the market. Well, that's brilliant. And so there's already an energy that's in place there. And I think a willingness to risk. Willingness to risk with their own time, with their own resources. Do you have something that you can bring to the table? Well, I don't have anything to bring. I'm not wealthy like the West. You have something to bring. What is it you're bringing? And so if there can be some agreement that each is bringing something, then I don't think the amount that's brought becomes the issue. It's the fact that they are bringing. Often church planters in these developing countries have an entrepreneurial spirit because they're forging a way forward that isn't necessarily easy. Do they have good ideas? You know what? And a typical entrepreneur has 10 ideas and 2 are good. But if you have 0 ideas, well, that's probably an indicator that you're not dreaming of how might I, craft a way forward.
So what you're saying is find the right person is what I'm hearing. And you find the person by observing their life.
Yes.
And what you did not say, but what I would probably imply is a person also of a good character, most probably.
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah. Are they trusted by their family? Are they trusted by their community? If it's a small village, it would be so ideal to go, well, who's the person of peace in that village? And so, because if they're a person of peace, likely the rest of that village in some form or way are already accessing them. Maybe their wisdom, maybe some of the resources that they already currently have. So if you can find a person of peace who already is living their life with the other in mind, rather than just kind of that, what can I get for me and my family?
I see what you're saying, because that would have been another question from me. Like, if you equip someone and help someone to start a business, how does sort of the kingdom side come into play? Like, how would you ensure, or what would you do in order for that to grow just as well as the business side?
That is a really good question. And actually, my daughter and I are wrestling with this because the needs of the business can become so overwhelming that you can actually lose your way in terms of, oh, hang on a second. We're actually doing this for people. And so I think that that's a very, very real tension that I want to talk about right out of the gates. And go, the demands to be successful in business can potentially squeeze out that missional heart that got you going in the first place, because this is for the people. So I think that's an ongoing, and for myself as well. Do I lose my way? Am I bringing Jesus into the conversation enough? Have I become so focused on the business that I lose track of the people? I don't know if there's an easy solution to that. I want to identify that reality quite quickly and make sure that there's a time budget kind of a perspective as well that allows people to set aside time. Because I think we're all like, what's in front of us is what we do. So we got to make sure that what we put in front of us is more than just one category. And so how's your time management?
Yeah.
Do you still have time to preach every once in a while? Do you still have time to lead worship? Do you have time to have a meal with the others in your life? So keep accountable on that.
Absolutely. And what I hear, I mean, there's no simple solution that you made clear, but what I hear you saying is, from the very beginning, you're not just focusing on the business side, but you're also focusing on the kingdom side. So you make that clear from the very
100%.
Beginning. What's the purpose of it?
Yeah.
So as a starting
what's
point.
What's this unto?
Yeah.
And it's very holistic. Yes, it's unto creating employment, and creating employment helps families survive and then flourish. That's very, very important. But I think the love of Jesus has to be every step of the way. Be it conversations, be it tangible challenges, be it asking questions. Yes, we might be more successful if we did this, but is that ethical? Is that right? So the ends don't always justify the means.
Absolutely.
And having very, very important discipleship conversations of that nature.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece would be like, you need to chat. Normally this has been evident in someone in advance, but these types of Christian leaders who are also business leaders do need to have a certain level of capacity. And often that's been evidenced in their lives. But
that's why you chose them in the first place.
Exactly, because we have this little phrase that says, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It's not easy. But is there a fire in your belly to make it happen? And what is that fire? For me, the fire is I love employing people. And you can only employ people if you're in a successful business that require more people to be employed or to stay gainfully employed. And so, and then what is that a doorway unto? To sharing the motivations behind why am I doing this, rather than just I love employing you. Yeah.
What would you suggest to people who might be engaged with mission who are not entrepreneurs so much themselves? Like, what are some advice that you would give to maybe a pastor who is active in mission and he doesn't have a Merlin next to him and he's himself not a Merlin, so to speak? What is your advice that you would give to such a person?
I would say that healthy business is never about the entrepreneur. It's about the team. And so if people look at me as being a successful entrepreneur, I would say the biggest gift I brought is that I'm into people. I recruit and develop the right people. So I think team is critical. And so if you're not an entrepreneur, attach yourself to an entrepreneur and let him speak into how you run your church, and let that friendship begin to foster and bring others forward. So I don't think that every leader has to necessarily be an entrepreneur, but you need to be friends with one, and you need to be able to help hold them accountable. I've got friends that are not entrepreneurs that are critical in helping say yes or no to some of the things I want to be about. So I think the real crux of it is finding team around the entrepreneur. So in the business sense, typically you need all kinds of business services around you, otherwise you can't succeed as a company. Bankers, lawyers, accountants, salespeople, you name it. So there's a lot of functions. But for in the missional business sense, same thing exists. Who are the specialists in their field? So if you're an entrepreneur, man, find that pastor who can keep your soul grounded in what you actually want to be about. If you're a pastor who's not an entrepreneur, or a church planter who's not one, find that entrepreneur, because together, 1 + 1 = 5, rather than 1 + 1 = 2.
Wow.
So I just think you don't be who you're not. Let who you are be a natural expression. And I think when you look in the rearview mirror, you'll go, oh, that's what that was all about. Rather than thinking, I'm not this, how do I become that? Someone wrote a book called Soar With Your Strengths. And one of the things that we don't do well in leadership or people development is we try to make people something other than what they are. And I think our goal is to find out, who are you? So the worst thing to do to an entrepreneur is to say, you should stop doing business and come be a pastor, because that's a holier calling. And the worst thing we can do to a pastor is, put some of that, preaching stuff to, and come here and really work with me. So I think finding that balance, there's not a perfect person that the Lord's looking for, but I think he's looking for the combination of those gifts to work together. If you think of the fivefold, like no individual has all of those gifts, right? The body needs all of us together. So I think pastors giving more than just lip service to what makes the businessman's heart burn, that is what's key to making church work or making ministry work.
You basically answered the question, but I'm still going to ask it. What do you advise a businessman who wants to get, who feels he might have a calling to mission?
Yeah, boy, let's start traveling. Let's start finding folks like yourself who are involved all over the world, and just go come. And often what you'll get, the entrepreneurial businessman is, he's driven to solve problems. And so if there's problems that can be solved in different nations in the world,
he's triggered.
Exposed. Yeah, he's triggered. And often they're activators. And that's where some of the good ideas in the past are going, like, I've never thought of that. But together, there can be such power. So exposure. And I think what you have to do with the business person is get his head up out of the rut that he can be in, because like your business, you're 24/7. That's the ironic thing of a businessman. A lot of pastors have boundaries and go, I'm not 24/7. I'm not always available on a phone. If I'm on sabbatical, I'm not available. As a business guy, you're always available. So that's one of the things you got to wrestle with, and to go, in the middle of your life, are you okay with that kind of access? Because it doesn't shut down because your soul needs tending to. So that's a different wrestle, right? Where again, I think the combination of those personalities or groups of people together are powerful. It's a powerful dynamic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much. That was so inspiring,
We
Merlin.
scratched things. We scratched the surface.
Yeah, we scratched the surface, but it's perfect, because if people want to know more, we're going to dig in deeper some other time.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know how to find me.
Yes. Hey, thank you so much, Merlin. Awesome.
Thanks,
Awesome to talk to you.
Loved it.
And I'm curious to hear more of the stories in the future.
Thank you.